Hello CraftDee Family, and welcome to another tutorial by She's So Crafty. For today's DIY project, we will be creating some fun and easy farmhouse DIY decor using items from the Dollar Tree. Now these pieces all feature a rustic black and white finish and can be decorated in so many different ways in your space. Now you can certainly customize these any way that you prefer with your own items that you have on hand. Now, as always, all of the projects I create have complete supply lists in the description box, so you can easily use it for reference as you gather your supplies. Now, before we start, I have to say, hey to all of my subscribers, and if you're a new visitor to my channel today, I hope you consider subscribing as well, and stick around to enjoy these crafts and the different tips that I'll share with you all to make these super easy to make. So now, let's just jump right into the projects. Now this project is a set of farmhouse storage boxes. Now we're going to start with two different size boxes from the Dollar Tree. Now we're going to take our two boxes, and what we want to do is to give them a couple of coats of some Zinsser 123 primer, or you can put a coat of chalk paint or acrylic paint. Now here are my boxes with those coats of paint nice and dry. Now my final coat, I chose to use some Krylon Satin White spray paint, or you can go ahead with your chalk paint or acrylic paint, and here are the boxes with that final coat all dry and ready to go. Now you notice the inside edge of this box was unfinished, so I'm just going to go in with a little chalk paint and finish off just that exposed edge with that pattern on it. I want to leave the majority of it that nice brown khaki color, so I'm just going to trim out the edges on the inside, and here it is all painted, and just allow that to completely dry. So while those finish up drying, we are going to start working on our lids. Now I wanted the lids of my project to be black color, so I'm going to use some black acrylic paint. Now I'm going to put on 2 coats of this black acrylic paint all over the outside of both of my lids. Now we want that to cover both of those lids and let them completely dry, so set those to the side. Now I did want to add handles to my project, so I'm using these old handles I repurposed from an old project, and I'm going to paint them with some satin black spray paint by Krylon. Now here are my handles all nice and dry with 2 coats of that spray paint. And now my lids are finally dry and we can start working on them. So the first thing I want to do is to make a template for the whole pattern in my handles. Now if you don't have a store-bought whole template, you can make one yourself. I'm just dabbing a few dabs of acrylic paint on the bottom of my handle where my holes are, and I'm going to stamp it onto a piece of cardstock. So as you can see, it transfers that whole pattern onto the paper, and now you can use that for your hole placement for your lids. Now in order to reinforce the cardboard lid, I am going to be using some of these jumbo craft sticks that I picked up for Lowe's for 98 cents. And I'm going to place one on the inside of the lid and make sure it's exactly down the center, so I'm trimming them down to fit. Now once they're all trimmed and ready, I'm just going to adhere them with a little bit of my Surebonder wood stick hot glue, and I'm going to apply one of the sticks down the center of each lid. So now that those are nice and bonded, I'm going to just punch a little hole in the center of my whole template, so we'll be able to transfer a mark through to my stick and then trim it down. So now I'm going to place my template in the center of my craft stick, and I'm going to transfer that whole pattern onto the stick with my Sharpie, just making a dot through that little hole that we made in each one of those marks. So now that our hole markings are there, we are going to drill a hole. Now I'm going to be using a 3/16 inch bit in my drill, and I'm going to make a hole exactly where those hole markings are in my lid, just drilling through that craft stick all the way through to the other side of the lid. And now you can see we have 2 holes on the top of each lid where we can place our handles. So now I'm just making sure the holes match up, and they do. It's nice and perfect. So I'm going to place one of the screws in each one of the holes from the inside of the lid, and then I can start to apply the handle on the outside. Now, in order to apply these, all I'm going to do is just use a screwdriver and just make sure they are screwed in nice and secure to the handle on the other side. And here is my handle all nice and secured to my lid, and just repeat this for the other one until both of the handles are secure on both of them. Now, while working, I did scuff up the paint a little bit, so I'm going to touch that up. Now, you also can go in with a layer of Mod Podge over this acrylic paint, and it'll give it a nice good seal. So now we're going to place that to the side and then grab our two boxes. So I'm going to place my lids on my boxes, and this will help me center the placement of some tags that I wanted to put on front of them. So what I did is I cut out a couple of tags out of cardstock and then outlined them with a chalk marker, but Dollar Tree does have some pre-made tags if you want to use them. So I'm just going to add some hot glue around the back of them and then hot glue it right in the center in the middle of the box. Now, to accent these tags, I'm going to use some upholstery nails that I cut off the little sharp ends, and you can also use thumbtacks from the Dollar Tree to do this as well. And then I'm going to apply one in each corner of the tag. I just think this gives it a little bit more of an upscale accent. Now, this is completely optional, but I'm adding this to my box. Now, once it's done for both boxes, here they are, both complete with their tags and accents, and they look great. So here are my two decorative boxes now on display, and I love how high-end these look. Now, I love this black and white finish, and it will fit perfectly into this video's theme. And these labels turned out perfect with the nail head accents, and the handles give it a really sophisticated look. Let me know what you think about this project in the comments below. Now, this project is a 3-tiered enamel look tray. Now, for this, I'm going to be using these shot glass holders from the Dollar Tree, and I found this in the party and gift box section at the Dollar Tree. And we're also going to need a sheet of white poster board from the Dollar Tree. Now we're going to go ahead and unpackage all of our pieces to our shot glass tray, and we're going to just separate them into the individual sets of pieces. Now we have a topper, here's the bottom, we have our center supports, and we have our main tray pieces for 3 levels. Now what we're going to do is start working with the level tray, and you'll see it has hole punches where the shot glasses will be held, and also hole punches where the pieces attach together. Now you notice one side has the indent and one side is smooth. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our poster board, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and apply some Mod Podge to the indented side of our sheets here for our circles with some Mod Podge. Now we're going to do this to add it to the poster board, so it'll prevent all of those little circles from popping out, and it'll create one solid surface for our tray. Now I did realize I should have punched out the little connection pieces first, so I'm just going ahead and getting that done with a little embossing tool, making sure my Mod Podge is still nice and moist on the layer, and then place it face down on the poster board, making sure it's nice and secure, and go ahead and add something to it on top to make sure it's nice and bonded. Now we are going to be repeating this for the other two, and I already pre-punched these connection holes here, applying a layer of Mod Podge on each one of them, and then placing them face down on that poster board as well. So while that continues to dry, I'm just going to trim off all of that excess poster board around the pieces. So now that our Mod Podge has adhered to our circles, we can start to cut them out. Now I'm using this utility knife that I had on hand. You can definitely use an X-Acto knife as well. Just trim around that circle very carefully, and as you can see, it is nice and bonded to that poster board and nice and smooth. And if you notice the other side, those circles will not pop out or anything because they are bonded to that sheet of poster board. So now what you want to do is take your utility knife or X-Acto knife, and we're going to cut a slit in each one of those connection points to make sure we can punch that through. And I'm using my embossing tool to do this. Now I just placed it in and kind of wiggled it back and forth, but I will show an easier way to do this later on. So here is one of the layers all punched out, and like I said, I will be doing this a little different here. What I'm doing is I'm actually placing 2 slits inside that hole, and then I'm going to flip it over and then cut a slit in the middle, and this should be able to pop that out nice and even, and then you could just kind of trim it off. I found this to be a neater solution, so I did this for the remaining of my trays, and here they are all done. So now we're going to work on our center supports. Now the zigzag is nice and fun if you're in the 80s, but I kind of wanted a curve for my tray. So what I'm doing is taking my embossing tool and just kind of freehanding a little arch, like a rainbow arch on each side, kind of drawing a line. And then once I get one that I'm happy with, I'm taking my utility knife and I'm cutting out that curve. Now as you can see, now it forms a nice little curve here on the side. Now the great thing about this is that you could take that cut out piece and then you can actually lay it on top of the other side and trace that line on and then cut that out as well. That way all of your sides will be nice and even. So now I'm going to take that cutout piece and I am going to trace both sides of this onto the other side of my arch, and then I'm going to cut that out as well. So now we have our 2 pieces for one center arch, and we're going to repeat the same thing for the other center arch until all 4 pieces have that curved shape. And now we're going to work on the topper of our tray. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to trace it out on a piece of poster board here just to make sure I get the right size. Now I wanted mine to have kind of a finial look, so I just kind of drew a small circle and then a larger circle under it as a base design, and then I'm just going to draw over it to make sure it has a nice pointed top and then kind of a wavy kind of base going down to make it look like a finial. Now I am going to split this down the center, so I'm just kind of making it look like half of a finial, and then I'm going to go over it with my Sharpie just to make sure I have that shape highlighted and I'm happy with it, and this will work perfect for my project. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out, make sure that center part is nice and even, and then place it on top of that topper piece. Now again, we are taking our embossing tool and tracing that out onto the center, and we're going to trace it on both sides to make sure we have one complete finial, and then we can take our utility knife and cut it out. Now once we cut it out with our utility knife, we have one nice piece. Now notice I did leave that bottom ½ inch uncut, so it'll be able to attach to the top nice and secure. So just make sure you repeat this on the other one, just tracing it out just like we did before, and then we can cut that out with our utility knife as well. And now we have both of our top pieces done. So now all of our pieces are ready to go. So these do have a shiny type of coating. So I'm just going to lightly go over them with a little sandpaper just to kind of roughen them up a bit so we can paint them and then dust them off with a paper towel. Now I'm going to go in with 2 coats of my Zinsser 123 primer, making sure you get the surfaces only, or of course you can use some acrylic or chalk paint as well. So here are all of my pieces with my 2 coats of primer on them, and they look great. Now my final coat will be this Satin Bright White by Krylon, but you can choose to use any kind of final coat that you like, whether it be chalk or acrylic paint. So now that my pieces have their final coat, they are ready to go. Now for my accent, what I wanted to do is trim the outsides of my piece with this black acrylic paint. Now this will give it a nice enamel look, so I'm taking a small paintbrush and I'm going around that outside edge with my paintbrush, just making sure that it covers the outside. It doesn't have to be perfect because we know enamel chipping is very random. So I'm just going to go over and start with my center support flat pieces first, and then I'm going to repeat that for every one of my pieces, making sure I get the outsides only. So here are all of my pieces that I've placed the black trim on all of the edges. You don't need to put it on the top and bottom connector pieces, you only need to put it on the outside edges. So now once that dries, we can actually start assembling our tray. So the bottom of the tray is really simple. We just connect this cross piece and then we're going to place this and snap it into place into the bottom connectors. So now the bottom of the tray is all nice and connected. So at this point we can put our first spacer here, and we are just gonna connect those pieces together and then snap those right in the holes as well. So now we're ready for our next tray piece, and we're gonna snap that piece right on top of there. And then we can add our next level, our next riser level. So we're gonna snap that spacer together, and then we can snap that on top of the tray, and we have our 2 levels so far. Now for the topper piece, we're just gonna go ahead and assemble our topper first. And now that our topper finial piece is done, we're gonna snap that to the very top level. And now we can add that to the top of our tray. Now I'm just snapping this all together. You can definitely hot glue this in place if you want it to be permanent, but I wanted mine to be able to be disassembled when not in use. So here is my tray all fully assembled. Now I was a little bit bothered by the little gaps and the holes at the connector pieces, but we're going to resolve that by cutting up some little strips of that poster board, and we are just going to put those over those little connector pieces that are exposed. I'm just going to add some Mod Podge to the matte side of that poster board, and I'm going to place a piece right over the little gap openings where those connectors are, over all of the pieces, and you can see here they are no longer visible. I placed one on each one and it looks great. And once that's done, you can decorate your tray. Now this was such a fun transformation to make. Now I've added some of my favorite farmhouse pieces to this tray, and I love how they just bring it all to life. Now this tray was designed to hold 24 shot glasses, so it's pretty sturdy and it'll hold all of my decor without a problem. And the best thing about this is that it will save space, since you can break it down and store it away when not in use. Let me know what you think of this project in the comments below. Now this project is a pair of wood-footed tray stands. Now we're going to need 2 of these decorative edged wood planks that I got from the Dollar Tree in sizes and styles of your choice. Now we're going to start by first of all removing all of the stickers from the back of our wood planks. And once we do that, we're going to add a finish. Now of course you can use a wood stain or antique wax if you like, but in order to keep in line with my theme here, I'm going to be painting these with chalk paint. So I'm going to add a nice good layer of chalk paint all around the top and sides of my wood plank pieces. So here's one all done, and just repeat this for your second one. Now let them completely dry. Now once they're dry, we are going to add a trim accent. So what I did is just take a spare craft stick. I'm going to add some of that black acrylic paint right on top of it, and I'm just going to drag that craft stick around the edge, and it's going to highlight all the crevices. Now you've noticed before in some of my DIYs I've done this with a sanding sponge, but a lot of people didn't have a sanding sponge, so I'm showing you an alternative way to actually hide or actually highlight those edges, and you could use a craft stick. So you want to do this for both of your pieces. Now I wanted to add feet to my piece, so I picked up these little round feet from Amazon. They're really inexpensive, at 20 a pack for about $10, so that comes out to about 50 cents a piece. I also found some clawfoot designs as well, and I will be adding these to my tray. Now I first wanted to paint them with some satin black to get rid of that brassy look and allow them to completely dry. Now I'm just going to separate my pieces and put all the claw feet on the square one. So these do come with tiny screws, but since this is a lightweight project, I'm just going to use my Surebonder wood stick hot glue to adhere these in each corner at the bottom of my tray. Now you do want to be generous with this wood stick hot glue. You want to make sure it has a nice heaping amount on there, and then press it firmly in place on the corner until that glue kind of squeezes through those nail holes, and make sure it's nice and secure. Now once that's in place, repeat that for the other 4 corners until they're all secured in place. So now we're going to repeat this for our other tray with the round feet as well, the same way, and here those are all in place. So now all you have to do is decorate your trays. Now once the glue sets, you can decorate them, and here are my 2 trays on display. Now I placed a few Farmhouse Decor pieces on top, and I love how these little claw feet look on this tray. Now I do think the other tray turned out amazing as well, with the little rounded feet too. Now I have to say, I love all of these projects today, but you guys have to let me know which one of these DIYs today was your absolute favorite. Be sure to let me know in the comments. Listen, if you love DIYs on a budget, please give this video a thumbs up and share this video with your friends. Make sure that you're following She's So Crafty EE on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest for the latest news, sneak peeks, and giveaways. Now, if you like videos like these and don't want to miss the next one, make sure you're subscribed by clicking that subscribe button below, or just click on my She's So Crafty logo on your screen, and make sure you hit that bell to be notified when the next DIY goes live. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.